VTV News. National Assembly discusses management of weapons, explosive and amendments to guard law. And Vietnam Big Four banks and SJC sell gold bars directly to customer. In a war news, South Korea to suspend inter-Korean military pact.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Hello, it's 8 a.m. local time in Hanoi, and you're watching VTV News. The 15th National Assembly continued the 7 sessions by focusing on debating bills, including the draft law on the management and use of weapons, explosive and supporting tools. They also gave opinions on the draft law on adjustments and supplements to a number of articles of the guard law. More to follow.
On Monday morning, the National Assembly continued the 7th session by discussing several articles of the revised draft law on the management and use of weapons and explosives and supporting tools. Opinion was divided, with some deputies concerned about the context in which knives are categorized as offensive weapons. Deputies also raised concerns about the complicated development of weapons and explosives management. Therefore, clearer regulations should prohibit people from collecting scrap and using military weapons and explosives. The handling and destruction of these dangerous materials should only be assigned to agencies and organizations with the technical conditions and capability to do so. On Monday afternoon, the National Assembly deputies gave opinions on the draft law on adjustments and supplements to a number of articles of the guard law. Some delegates suggested expanding the scope of individuals eligible for security guard status to include certain international visitors entering Vietnam. Additionally, they proposed incorporating provisions regarding the duration of special protection certificates for the guard force. Furthermore, they emphasized the importance of clarifying regulations and principles for handling emergency situations to prevent the misuse of protective measures and uphold human rights as stipulated in the constitutions.
State President Tô Lâm visited and inspected combat readiness of the Air Defense Air Force High Command in Hanoi on June 3rd, affirming that the party, state and people always pay a special attention to building a robust and comprehensive people's armies and the Air Defense Air Force in particular. The Air Defense Air Force was also praised for actively and effectively following the party directives and stands on national defense and security, especially those outlined in the 13th National Party Congress resolution. In addition to his core duties, the president encouraged the ADAF to actively engage in poverty reduction, disaster prevention, and rescue efforts while bolstering defense diplomacies to contribute to securing weapons and equipment for national defense tasks. Also, State President Tô Lâm announced the decisions to appoint Senior Lieutenant General Trịnh Văn Quyết, member of the Party Central Committee, member of the Central Military Commissions, and Vice Chairman of the General Departments of Politics under the Vietnam People's Army as the new Chairman of the General Departments of Politics at a ceremony in Hanoi on Monday. The State President requested the new Chairman and members of the Central Military Commissions and the General Department of Politics to stay united in ideology and action, enhance the quality and combat capacity of the Army as the loyal and trustworthy political and fighting force of the party, state, and people. He reminded them to pay greater attention to building a strong Vietnam People's Army and military human resources training. For his part, Chairman of the General Departments of Politics, Trịnh Văn Quyết, vowed to work hard to complete all tasks assigned by the party, state, Vietnam People's Army, and people. The central province of Quang Binh held a ceremony in the presence of Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính in Đồng Hới City on June 2nd to celebrate the 420th founding anniversary, 1604-2024. General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng and State President Tô Lâm also sent a congratulatory flower basket. Much follow.
In his speech, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính hailed the province's enormous achievements after nearly 50 years of national reunification, especially since its re-establishment 35 years ago, saying it has increasingly affirmed its important role and contributed more to national development.
During the resistance wars against France and the U.S., Quang Binh province contributed to the entire nation's victory with simultaneous military, political, and economic attacks on the French colonialists. Meanwhile, Quang Binh was the front of the North and the direct rear of the South in the fight against the U.S.
The leader also asked the province to further tap into its distinctive potential, outstanding opportunities, competitive edges, and especially its cultural, historical, and human values. In particular, he said efforts must be made to build breakthrough mechanisms and policies to turn Quang Binh into a center of nature tourism and a world-renowned attractive destination that capitalizes on the advantages of this kingdom of caves, so that tourism is truly a spearhead sector, contributing to sustainable socio-economic development and benefiting the local community. Before the ceremony, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính paid tribute to late President Ho Chi Minh and heroic martyrs at a temple commemorating the late leader in Đồng Hới City.
Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính hosted a reception for President of Laos State Inspection Authorities Kham Phan Phomaphat in Hanoi on June 3rd. The Prime Minister said that he believed that the Laos official visit will help deepen the special ties between the two countries and trustful cooperation between the government inspection agencies. The Laos official affirmed that in his position, he will work hard to enhance the effectiveness of cooperation with Vietnam's party and government inspection agencies. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính expressed his pleasure at the positive progress of Vietnam-Laos partnership in all fields, including party, state inspections, and anti-corruption. He underlined the significance of the special relations between the two countries, affirming that Vietnam always attaches great importance to cooperation with Laos and will do its best to further develop the ties in all fields. Also on the same day, Inspector General of the Government Inspectorate Doãn Hồng Phong held talks with Kham Phan Phomaphat, President of the Laos State Inspection Authority in Hanoi. The Vietnamese official emphasized that the Laos official working visit is a vivid demonstration of the good cooperation and friendship between two inspectorate agencies in recent years, and also a valuable opportunity for the two sides to implement a memorandum of understanding on cooperation they signed in 2022. He expressed his belief that the effective cooperation and friendship between the two agencies will continue to contribute to promoting great friendship, special solidarity, and comprehensive cooperation between Vietnam and Laos. Coming up next on VTV News, Vietnam's Big Four banks and HJC sell gold bars directly to customers. And Vietnam tourism bounces back in the first 5 months. The four biggest state-owned commercial banks of Vietnam, Vietcombank, Vietinbank, Agribank, and BIDV, and Saigon Jewelry Company (SJC) are authorized to sell SJC brand gold bars to individual customers. The State Bank of Vietnam announced on Monday. According to the central bank, the selling price of SJC brand is nearly 80 million Vietnam dong, or more than $3,000 per till. More to follow.
On Monday, numerous people lined up at the gold selling points of the 4 state-owned commercial banks.
I prefer buying gold at the state-owned commercial banks as the gold price is stable. I will feel more secure if the gold price stabilizes.
To meet the demand of customers who could not buy gold on Monday, the banks took their contact information and orders for the next day.
We take customers' contact information and orders of those who register to buy gold but still have wait for their turn. If the next day they come back here, they will be first served.
However, to prevent money laundering, customers who buy more than 5 taels of gold are required to declare more detailed information such as the source of money to buy gold, their average monthly income, and their place of work.
Customers whose transactions reach more than $15,500 in a day are required to provide further information with more details for the state bank.
Following the latest move of the Big 4 state-owned commercial banks, this company began selling gold to customers at a price determined by the State Bank of Vietnam based on current global gold prices.
We'll keep the gold price stable as part of joint efforts in stabilizing the gold market.
According to the central bank, this strategic move aims to promote market stability and ensure a balanced gold market, rather than to pursue profit motives. Starting from June 4th, the gold selling operations will begin at 9 a.m.
Recently, mechanisms and policy have been implemented to integrate domestic supporting industries into the production trains of foreign companies, aiming to enhance domestic production capacity and reduce reliance on foreign materials and parts. The localization rate has been improving, with some domestically produced cars achieving a 55% localization rate. The textiles, garment, and footwear industries have reached 50%, while the electronics industry has reached 10%. However, challenges remain that need to be addressed.
To replace imported parts from global manufacturers. Last year, the company received support from the Ministry of Industry and Trade to enhance its production capacity and successfully exported its first batch of goods last month. Nevertheless, additional support is still needed.
Our products meet the standards for export to Europe. However, we urgently need support to connect with FTA enterprises and foreign customers. We face significant challenges in securing the capital necessary for expanding production.
Foreign enterprises often prefer sourcing raw materials and spare parts from familiar partners or those of the same nationality, with stringent requirements for quality, price, and environmental standards. Vietnam's supporting industry, mostly consisting of small and medium-sized enterprises with limited production capacity, struggles to compete, especially when borrowing capital at high interest rates.
We propose that the government report to the National Assembly Standing Committee to include the key technology development law in the 2021 to 2025 Legislative Development Program. We are also revising and submitting an amended Decree 111 on supporting industry development for promulgation. Better coordination is required from local authorities, especially those with supporting industrial enterprises, to facilitate connections and investment.
In the near future, policies aimed at attracting foreign direct investment will be formulated to tie incentives with the promotion of Vietnamese supporting industrial enterprises, thereby boosting the localization value ratio.
Vietnam draws significant interest from large semiconductors corporations from countries like the United States, South Korea, and Japan. Additionally, many domestic companies are entering the market, leading to high demand for a large skilled labor force. To address this, local authorities, businesses, and training facilities are collaborating to enhance the quality of semiconductor workforce training. More to follow.
At this training center, students can access the most modern equipment and facilities, with chip simulation accuracy reaching 95%. For example, this server is the only one in Southeast Asia, and it can reduce the simulation process from months to hours.
This is one of the ways the business helps the university enhance the quality of its training programs in a more practical manner.
It's a good way for us to basically bring technology to the university. The semiconductor industry is shifting. So previously there was a lot of focus on hardware. Now it's all towards hardware and software being integrated together in a global supply chain, in a vertical supply chain. The era we're now talking about semiconductors, I call it software-driven semiconductor design.
The collaboration focuses on the most practical training objectives. This allows students to engage with and even participate in the operation of production lines and technologies at leading enterprises in this field. Furthermore, training facilities coordinate with and receive support from local authorities.
The local government supports us by sending lecturers to study and enhance their professional qualifications domestically and abroad. It also offers investment packages and upgrades infrastructure, particularly laboratories.
We support the university in establishing startup and innovation centers and clubs to enhance its training activities.
The cooperation model between local authorities, training facilities, and enterprises is being implemented in several localities such as Hanoi, Hải Phòng, Đà Nẵng, Cần Thơ, and Ho Chi Minh City.
We have established strategic partnerships with VTV4 alliance partners, providing mutual benefits for the Da Nang government, businesses, and training facilities to address labor force shortages in the semiconductor industry. The Semiconductor Research and Human Resources Training Alliance, VASA, marks an important initial step in advancing human resource training in this field.
According to the Ministry of Planning and Investment, Vietnam will need at least 50,000 semiconductor engineers by 2030. Cooperation between the local government, businesses, and training facilities will have improved the quantity and quality of human resources, contributing to solving the labor shortage in this field.
The Vietnam Food Association has recently proposed a reintroducing floor prices for rice exports. This measure aims to prevent businesses from engaging in unfair price competitions and to maintain the value of Vietnamese rice. This strategy was implemented about 10 years ago. Currently, the questions of whether to reinstate the floor price is eliciting different responses from rice export businesses.
5,000 tons of rice are exported to Singapore each month. This order is particularly valuable for the business, with a price of $638 per ton for 5% broken rice. Consequently, excessively low export prices can negatively impact the bidding process for businesses and the rice industry as a whole.
We apply the floor price to maintain the value of Vietnamese rice grains. The industry will benefit and especially farmers will have better income.
However, some businesses oppose the reintroduction of export floor prices to address the issue of selling rice at low prices. They argue that the previous implementation was unsuccessful and, to some extent, hindered and reduced their opportunities to export rice.
Applying floor prices means businesses are no longer autonomous while the market fluctuates up and down. How can floor prices keep up with reality?
We should carefully consider the application of floor prices, given that associations and legal regulations can also be utilized as price controls.
In response to the Vietnam Food Association's proposal, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development will collaborate with the Ministry of Industry and Trade to develop the most optimal solutions. According to businesses, applying floor prices is a short-term measure. A more sustainable and long-term approach involves managing rice exports flexibly in response to market fluctuations while ensuring efficiency and benefiting the entire industry.
To protect local biodiversity, Phie Province will set aside 50 hectares to plant different species of trees for mangrove forests at Ô Loan Lagoon. This effort is believed to help restore the ecosystem in this scenic spot. Up to now, mangrove trees such as Sonetaria, Zeuxophora, and Nipa palm have covered 17 hectares of land in 3 communes along the lagoon, creating a natural 10 kilometers barrier with minimal human impact. Next year, Phie Province will complete the planting of the remaining areas. This will create a scenic landscape that will not only improve the local environment and limit the negative impacts of rising sea levels, but also create livelihoods for local people by allowing them to participate in the sustainable management, protection, and development of mangrove forests. Vietnam recorded 7.6 million international tourists in the first 5 months of this year, increasing 3.9% compared to the same period post-pandemic. The figure demonstrates the strong recovery of Vietnam's tourism sector thanks to the government's favorable policies and the joint efforts of relevant departments and localities. This sector has increased important measures to attract more international tourists from new markets in 2024.
China surpassed South Korea to become Vietnam's largest source of tourists in May. However, in the first 5 months of this year, South Korea remained the largest global source of tourists for Vietnam.
Vietnam has become a top travel destination for South Korean holidaymakers as there are many direct flights.
European tourists to Vietnam have increased by more than 57% thanks to Vietnam's open visa policies.
We wanted to extend our stay, so we said it would be good to see Vietnam. So we're seeing Hanoi.
We're expecting nearly 150,000 international tourists in the near future. To achieve this goal, we'll diversify our tourism products to meet the demand of different types of tourists.
In June, Vietnam expects to see a surging number of domestic tourists. In the first 5 months of this year, the country recorded 52.5 million domestic tourists. However, the tourism sector should take more expansive measures as Vietnam's tourism competitiveness has decreased, according to the World Economic Forum.
The domestic tourism will bounce back if supply meets demand.
We will submit our proposals to relevant ministries and agencies as we want to strengthen cooperation with localities to eliminate the current shortcomings.
To increase Vietnam's tourism competitiveness, the sector needs to diversify tourism products, improve destination management, and promote local cultural attractions further. Vietnam is aiming to achieve 18 million international tourists and 110 million domestic tourists this year.
Coming up next in our world news, South Korea to suspend inter-Korean military pact. And Sri Lanka floods and landslide kill at least 15. South Korea will suspend the 2018 inter-Korean tensions reducing military pact with North Korea, the National Security Council in Seoul announced on Monday. Seoul said it would suspend the inter-Korean military pact until mutual trust between the two Koreas is restored. The 2018 military deal signed by the two countries on September 19, 2018 requires both sides to end hostile acts toward each other. The agreement includes plans for the establishment of a maritime buffer zone and the transformations of demilitarized zone into a peace zone. However, North Korea declared it would scrap the accord in November last year. The two Koreas remain technically at war because the 1950-1953 conflict ended in an armistice, not a treaty. The global liquefied natural gas LNG supply is set to surge by 80% by 2030, driven by new projects in Qatar and North America, a new analyst show. In an illustrated report, Goldman Sachs said that this robust rise in supply would lower natural gas prices in Europe and Asia and bringing an end to the current energy crisis following the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The oil and gas industry is undergoing a major transformation as it braces for the eventual long-term decline in oil demand and rising global need for natural gas. The U.S.-based financial services firm also highlighted that investment in LNGs are projected to increase by over 50% by 2029. At least 15 people have been killed and thousands displaced after heavy rainfall caused flooding and landslide in Sri Lanka. 7 regions of the South Asian Islands nation experienced torrential rainfall of more than 400 millimeters over the weekend, twice the amount of rain that falls in the month. The rainfall triggered flash floods and landslides. Nearly 4,000 homes have suffered damage and 28 have been completely destroyed. Schools were closed on Monday and 9 regions were under alert as more rainfall was expected. The federal government has mobilized the military to provide relief to affected people. Rising sea levels due to climate change have forced an indigenous Guna community to leave their homes on an island off Panama coast. And faced with rising sea waters and overcrowding, the Guna people on Gardi Subduff Islands, who have been living there for nearly 200 years, decided to move to new houses built in a clearing surrounded by lush green forest on the mainland.
Panama, which bridges Central and South America, counts 386,000 people, nearly 1 in 10, who live less than 10 meters above sea level. Over 4% live less than 5 meters above the waves. Rising ocean levels caused by global warming and decades of coral reef destruction have combined with seasonal rains and more severe storms to submerge Gardi Subduff for days on end.
Since I was a child, I was always in contact with the sea. One looked from the island to the forest, to the jungle, so now it will be the other way around. This is what I'm going to miss. Going in the water with my boat. My children probably won't do it because now we're going to be on the mainland.
The entire community is expected to move next week if the weather allows for safe passage.
It's the climate crisis that the world is experiencing, and obviously among the effects of the climate crisis is the increase of the ocean levels, of the seas, and this has forced us here in Panama to relocate the islanders to this urbanization.
Across Latin America and the Caribbean, the United Nations has found that 41 million people live in low-lying areas and face growing risks from increasingly frequent flooding, storm surges, and hurricanes. Meanwhile, many wealthy countries lag on their climate pledges.
Okay, now, as usual, I'll continue with the weather forecast. And that's it for this hour on VTV News. To rewatch our program, you can log on to vtvgo.vn or download our mobile application VTVgo. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.